More than 30 years have passed since Melrose Place first hit the airwaves, and the actors who lived behind those apartment doors went on to face scandals, breakdowns, tragedies, and reinventions that no soap opera writer could ever have scripted. The show itself was a phenomenon, a soapy, over-the-top drama about young adults sharing a Los Angeles apartment complex, built on affairs, betrayals, and increasingly outrageous twists that somehow only made viewers more obsessed. But nothing that happened inside that fictional courtyard came close to what unfolded in the real lives of the people who played there. One of them spent nearly a decade of her real life locked inside a New Jersey prison cell after a fatal drunk driving crash, and only walked free a couple of years ago. Another became one of Hollywood's most talked about cautionary tales, cycling through more than 20 stints in rehab and a headline-making arrest on her own birthday. A third turned a bomb explosion and a hidden scar into one of the most legendary twists in the history of American television, and years later faced a real and very public battle with cancer. A fourth walked away from Hollywood entirely to build a non-profit empire, while another found an entire second act, playing a soap patriarch decades after the first show ended. This is what actually happened to the cast of Melrose Place. When Melrose Place premiered on Fox on July 8, 1992, the sweet artistic heart of the apartment complex was Jane Mancini, the fashion designer trying to hold her marriage and her sanity together while everyone around her fell apart. The actress behind her was Josie Bissett. She was 21 years old when the show began, and she had already reinvented herself once just to get into the room. Jolyn Christine Hoytmaker was born on October 5, 1970, in Seattle, Washington. Agents found her original surname impossible to pronounce, so at the start of her career, she adopted her mother's maiden name and became Josie Bissett. She began modeling in Seattle print ads and commercials at just 12 years old, left home for Japan at 16 to keep building her career, and arrived in Los Angeles at 17 with nothing but ambition. Her acting debut came in the 1989 Italian-American horror film, Hitcher in the Dark, followed by a recurring role on the sitcom The Hogan Family for 2 seasons. That work led to an audition for a new Aaron Spelling primetime soap, and in 1992, she was cast as Jane Andrews Mancini, a fashion designer trying to build a life and a career in the middle of Los Angeles chaos. Bissett stayed with the series for 5.5 seasons, at the peak of her fame, named one of People magazine's 50 Most Beautiful People in 1996. Then, halfway through the 1996 to 97 season, she suffered a real-life miscarriage and stepped away from the show to grieve and heal. She returned for the final season in 1998, closing out the story she had opened 6 years earlier. In 1992, she married her Melrose co-star, Rob Estes. The marriage produced 2 children before ending in divorce in 2006. She married businessman Thomas Doig in 2017. In 2009 and 2010, Bissett returned one more time for the CW reboot of Melrose Place, reprising Jane, now revealed as the building's owner after her sister Sydney had been murdered. Away from acting, she became a genuine advocate for parenting causes, spending time as a spokesperson for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and hosting her own television specials on child development, work that earned her a Celebrity Mom of the Year honor from the Mom's Choice Awards in 2008. Today, in 2026, Josie Bissett is 55 years old. She lives quietly in her native Seattle, has appeared alongside former castmate Jack Wagner in Hallmark's Wedding March film series, and remains, by every account, one of the gentlest survivors of a genuinely brutal industry. If Melrose Place had one true constant, it was him. Dr. Michael Mancini, charming, manipulative, endlessly self-serving, was the character viewers loved to despise, and he was played by the only actor who never once left the building. Thomas Calabro was 33 years old when the series began, and the road that got him there ran straight through one of the most famous acting schools in America. Thomas F. Calabro was born on February 3, 1959, in Brooklyn, New York, where he grew up working the counter at his father's luncheonette and newspaper stand in Queens. At Fordham University, fate handed him an unlikely break when classmate Denzel Washington dropped out of a student production of A Midsummer Night's Dream. Calabro stepped into the lead role of Oberon, He went on to train at the Actors Studio and the Circle Repertory Company, the same rigorous circles that shaped a generation of serious New York actors. Calabro began his screen career in 1984 and spent years building a solid, unglamorous resume before Melrose Place changed everything in 1992. He remained through all 7 seasons, from the show's modest beginnings to its campy, over-the-top finale in 1999. The only original cast member never departed and never came back because he never left. During 3 of the later seasons, he stepped behind the camera as well, directing 4 episodes himself. Off-screen, he married Elizabeth Pryor in 1993. The marriage produced 3 children before ending in divorce in 2006. He married Lisa Calabro in 2015. Before Melrose ever came calling, Calabro spent years quietly grinding through the industry's margins. A small role in the 1984 crime thriller Exterminator 2, a CBS television movie about the hunt for the Son of Sam killer, and an off-Broadway play in which he took on the demanding role of a young gay man years before mainstream Hollywood was comfortable with that kind of material. It was that patient, unglamorous groundwork that made him ready when the biggest role of his career finally arrived. After Melrose, Calabro kept working steadily, recurring roles on Without a Trace, Touched by an Angel, and FX's Nip/Tuck, along with a memorable guest turn as a father figure on Glee. Today in 2026, Thomas Calabro is 67 years old and still active in the industry. The one man who was there for every single day the doors of Melrose Place were open. Before he was one of the most quietly groundbreaking characters on American network television, Doug Savant was delivering pizzas for his cousin's restaurant in Burbank. He was 28 years old when he was cast as Matt Fielding, the social worker whose storyline made history, and whose treatment by network censors became a story of its own. Douglas Peter Savant was born on June 21, 1964, in Burbank, California. Before Melrose, he had already logged years of work in teen films of the 1980s and a recurring role on Knots Landing. When Melrose Place launched in 1992, Matt Fielding became one of the first openly gay characters ever given a regular role on mainstream American television. It should have been a milestone moment for the show. Instead, the network fought it every step of the way, most notoriously in 1994, when a heavily promoted same-sex kiss between Matt and another character was quietly cut from the broadcast at the last minute, despite the ratings hype built around it. Frustrated that the network refused to let his character have any real romantic life at all, Savant left the series after 6 seasons. His personal life carried its own quiet drama. He was previously married to Dawn Marie Duncan, with whom he had 2 daughters before that marriage ended. In May 1998, he married his Melrose Place co-star, Laura Leighton, with whom he shares 2 more children, a marriage that has now lasted nearly 3 decades, with Leighton helping raise all 4 children as one blended family. After Melrose, Savant found a second iconic role as Tom Scavo on Desperate Housewives from 2004 to 2012, working for years alongside one other former Melrose castmate, hiding in plain sight on the same soap-adjacent street. He also appeared as Sergeant O'Neill in 1998's Godzilla, and in the box office hit First Daughter the following year. Today, in 2026, Doug Savant is 62 years old, still acting, and still married to the woman he met on that Melrose Place soundstage. The bad boy carpenter who rode into apartment 4 on a motorcycle and never really left the frame, that was Jake Hanson, and he was, in many ways, the character who started it all. Grant Shue was 30 years old when the series began, and his path to stardom had already taken him through daytime soaps and a genuine brush with a very different kind of Hollywood legend. Grant Allen Shue was born on February 27, 1962, in Detroit, Michigan, and moved with his family to San Jose, California, as a small child. He studied theater at UCLA and broke into the business on the daytime soap Ryan's Hope, earning a Daytime Emmy nomination along the way. He then landed the recurring role of Jake Hanson on Beverly Hills 90210, a character who was spun off directly into the cast of the brand new Melrose Place in 1992. According to Gina Davis, Shue was one of the actors who auditioned for the role that eventually went to Brad Pitt in Thelma and Louise, a fascinating footnote to a career that took a very different path. Shue briefly left Melrose in 1994 to headline the short-lived spin-off Models Inc., then returned to the main show before departing for good in 1997. Even before Melrose Place, he had already made his Broadway debut in The Boys of Winter in 1985 and appeared in 2 episodes of The Love Boat during his New York years. He was previously married to actress Pollyanna McIntosh from 2004 to 2011. In 2012, he married actress Catherine Lanassa, and the couple welcomed a daughter in 2014. Decades after Melrose ended, Shue found an unexpected full-circle role. From 2017 to 2022, he played patriarch Blake Carrington on the CW reboot of Dynasty, the very soap genre that first made him a star. Today, in 2026, Grant Shue is 64 years old and remains one of the most durable leading men of the primetime soap era. He was the earnest, good-hearted everyman of Melrose Place, the guy the audience was supposed to root for, while everyone around him spiraled into scandal. Andrew Shue was only 25 years old when he was cast as Billy Campbell, and his life outside the show turned out to be just as unusual as anything the writers ever came up with for his character. Andrew Epley Shue was born on February 20th, 1967, in Wilmington, Delaware, the younger brother of Academy Award-nominated actress Elizabeth Shue. A gifted athlete, he played soccer at Dartmouth College from 1985 to 1988, and went on to a genuine professional career, including a stint with the Bulawayo Highlanders in Zimbabwe, where he also spent time teaching high school mathematics to local students, before playing indoor soccer for Los Angeles United and the Anaheim Splash in the United States, and finally finishing his athletic career with Major League Soccer's LA Galaxy in 1996 and 1997, even while Melrose Place was still airing, and his character Billy Campbell remained a fixture of the show. His family carried real grief behind the scenes. His older brother William died young at the family's summer home, a loss that shaped both Andrew and Elizabeth for the rest of their lives. And their father, James Shue, passed away in 2013. After Melrose, Shue largely stepped away from acting to build something else entirely. He co-founded the nonprofit organization DoSomething.org, and later co-founded the social networking site Cafe Mom, becoming one of the rare Melrose alumni to build a genuinely significant second career in business and philanthropy. He briefly returned to acting in the late 2000s for guest appearances, but the boardroom, not the soundstage, had clearly become his true home. He married Jennifer Hageney in 1994. The marriage produced 3 sons before ending in divorce in 2008. In 2010, he married ABC News correspondent Amy Robach, blending their 2 families into one large household, famously described by Robach as resembling the Brady Bunch. Before that marriage, too, ended in divorce in 2023. Today, in 2026, Andrew Shue is 59 years old, still deeply involved in the nonprofit world he helped build after leaving Hollywood behind. Alison Parker was the closest thing Melrose Place had to a moral center, an ordinary young woman trying to survive extraordinary chaos. Courtney Thorne-Smith was 24 years old when she joined the cast, carrying with her an early Hollywood story about typecasting that many young actresses of the era would recognize instantly. Courtney Thorne-Smith was born on November 8, 1967, in San Francisco, California, and raised largely in Menlo Park after her parents divorced when she was 7. Before Melrose, one of her first television jobs was a recurring role on L.A. Law, cast, to her own surprise, in a skimpy cheerleader costume as a Laker girl girlfriend, an early lesson in how the industry saw her before she got the chance to show anything else. In 1992, she landed the role of Alison Parker, and by her own account, it was the show that finally let her escape the sex symbol box she had been placed in. Thorne-Smith left Melrose Place in 1997, immediately stepping into a very different kind of role as Georgia Thomas on Ally McBeal, earning a Screen Actors Guild Award as part of that ensemble. She went on to lead the sitcom According to Jim from 2001 to 2009, and later joined 2.5 Men in a long-running recurring role opposite Charlie Sheen and John Cryer. By her own admission, the shift from Melrose's dramatic intensity to sitcom comedy was a deliberate move, a conscious effort to shed the siren image the industry had assigned her before she ever had a chance to prove her range. Her personal life had its share of turbulence. A brief marriage to geneticist Andrew Conrad in 2000 that ended within months, followed by a marriage to marketing executive Roger Fishman in 2007, with whom she had a son, before the couple separated in 2021. Today, in 2026, Courtney Thorne-Smith is 58 years old, an avid knitter by hobby, and one of the most consistently working members of the original Melrose Place cast. Her presence on Melrose Place was itself a statement about the limits of early 1990s network television. Vanessa Estelle Williams played Rhonda Blair, an aerobics instructor, and the first, and for years only, Black series regular on the show. She was 29 years old when she joined the cast, and what happened to her character says as much about the industry of that era as anything that happened on screen. Vanessa Estelle Williams was born on May 12, 1963, and raised in the Bedford-Stuyvesant neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York. Her mother died when Vanessa was only 10 years old, and she was raised afterward by her grandmother. She earned a theater and business management degree from Marymount Manhattan College before breaking into film with New Jack City in 1991 and the horror hit Candyman in 1992, the same year she joined Melrose Place. Rhonda Blair lasted only one season before being written off the show. Williams later spoke candidly about why. The writers, she said, never made a real effort to equip themselves to write for a black character, whether by hiring a black writer or simply asking her for input. The character was married off and quietly disappeared. Before all of that, Williams had already appeared on The Cosby Show and Law and Order, building a reputation as a serious young actress in New York before Hollywood ever noticed her. The chapter that followed Melrose proved the show's loss was Hollywood's gain. Williams went on to a regular role in Stephen Bochco's legal drama Murder One, then Chicago Hope, before landing her signature role as Maxine Joseph Chadway on Showtime's Soul Food from 2000 to 2004, winning an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Actress in a Drama Series, and becoming part of the longest-running drama with a predominantly black cast in American primetime history. In 2021, she returned to the Candyman franchise in its long-awaited sequel, closing a circle that began the same year she first walked onto the Melrose Place set. She married Andre Wiseman in 1992, and the couple had 2 children before separating in 2018. Today in 2026, Vanessa Estelle Williams is 63 years old, with a career built largely on the strength of everything she did after Melrose Place let her go. Some Melrose Place stories ended in reinvention. Hers ended for nearly a decade behind bars. Amy Locane played Sandy Harling, the sweet small-town roommate of the original cast, and she was only 20 years old when the show premiered, already carrying real Hollywood credibility from a John Waters cult classic and a prestige teen drama that also launched 2 future A-list stars. Amy Rose Locane was born on December 19, 1971, in Trenton, New Jersey. Before Melrose, she had already starred in John Waters' 1990 musical Cry Baby opposite Johnny Depp, and appeared in 1992's School Ties alongside a young Matt Damon and Brendan Fraser. Sandy Harling lasted only 1 season on Melrose before the character quietly faded from the show, and Locane's career continued modestly through the 1990s and early 2000s. Then, in June 2010, everything changed. Driving with a blood alcohol level nearly 3 times the legal limit and roughly 18 miles per hour over the speed limit, Locane crashed into a car turning into its own driveway in Montgomery, New Jersey, killing 60-year-old Helene Seaman and seriously injuring her husband, Fred. She was convicted of vehicular homicide and assault by auto in 2012 and, in a sentencing that critics called shockingly lenient, received only 3 years, of which she served 2.5 before her release in 2015. The victim's family fought back for years, arguing the punishment did not fit the crime, and after multiple appeals, a court agreed. Locane was sentenced to 8 years in 2020 and returned to prison that September, this time serving the great majority of her sentence before finally walking free on December 20th, 2024, having spent close to 7 of the previous 14 years behind bars in total. She married Mark Bovenizer in 2008. The marriage, which produced 2 children, ended in divorce in 2017 during her legal battles. Today, in 2026, Amy Locane is 54 years old, out of prison, and attempting, quietly and largely out of the public eye, to rebuild a life that one drunken drive through a New Jersey town nearly destroyed for good. She was the relatively grounded one, the tomboy photographer surrounded by a building full of borderline personalities. And Daphne Zuniga brought a quiet, smoky voice steadiness to Joe Reynolds that anchored the show's chaos from its very first episode. She was 29 years old when Melrose Place began, and she had already spoofed one of cinema's most iconic princesses on the big screen. Daphne Eurydice Zuniga was born on October 28, 1962, in Berkeley, California, and raised largely by her single mother, a Unitarian minister, after her philosophy professor father left the family when Daphne was 6. She studied theater at UCLA and built a respectable 1980s film career, including a lead role in Rob Reiner's The Sure Thing opposite John Cusack, and an unforgettable comic turn as Princess Vespa in Mel Brooks's Spaceballs in 1987. That mix of dramatic credibility and comic timing helped her land the role of Joe Reynolds as one of the original 9 members of the Melrose Place cast, alongside a younger sister, Jennifer Zuniga, who would go on to build her own acting career. Zuniga stayed with the show through its entire run, one of the few original cast members whose character arc never truly derailed into scandal or tragedy, on screen or off. Away from acting, she became a genuinely committed environmental activist, working with organizations including the Natural Resources Defense Council, the Waterkeeper Alliance, and Environment California for decades, and even co-authored a book about her travels documenting environmental campaigns across the country. A talented painter as well, she has shown her artwork in gallery exhibitions, away from the cameras entirely. She married businessman David Malechko in 2019 after a long engagement. Today, in 2026, Daphne Zuniga is 63 years old, still acting occasionally, still painting, and still deeply engaged in the environmental causes she has championed since long before Melrose Place made her famous. Melrose Place was a modest hit in its first season, but it was not yet the cultural phenomenon it would become. When the ratings needed a jolt, Aaron Spelling reached for the one actress who had already proven she could carry a primetime soap almost single-handedly. Heather Locklear arrived on Melrose Place in 1993 as Amanda Woodward, the hard-as-nails advertising executive who turned the show into a genuine phenomenon. She was 31 years old when she joined, and behind that icy on-screen confidence was a life that would spend the next 3 decades swinging between spectacular highs and deeply public lows. Heather Dean Locklear was born on September 25, 1961, in Los Angeles, California. She had already become a household name on Dynasty as Sammy Jo Carrington, and remarkably worked simultaneously on T.J. Hooker, one of the only actors of her era to hold down 2 hit series at once. When Spelling brought her onto Melrose Place, the ratings jumped almost immediately, and Locklear earned 4 consecutive Golden Globe nominations for the role, reportedly becoming the highest-paid actress on the show. Her personal life became a fixture of tabloid coverage for decades. She was married to Motley Crue drummer Tommy Lee from 1986 to 1993, and to Bon Jovi guitarist Richie Sambora from 1994 to 2007, with whom she shares a daughter. Away from the tabloid chapters, she also built a genuinely durable film career, starring in 1984's Firestarter, the 1997 action comedy Money Talks, and the 2005 romantic comedy The Perfect Man, while continuing to headline television with Spin City and later Hot in Cleveland. In the years that followed, Locklear's struggles became painfully public. More than 20 rehabilitation stints, a 2008 DUI, arrest that ultimately found no drugs or alcohol in her system, and a widely reported 2017 arrest on domestic violence charges that occurred, with grim irony, on her own 56th birthday. In 2018, reports surfaced that she had been placed on a psychiatric hold following a mental health crisis. She later spoke openly about reaching 1 year of sobriety in April 2020 and was briefly engaged to her high school sweetheart, Chris Heiser, before that relationship also ended. Today, in 2026, Heather Locklear is 64 years old, continuing what she has described as an ongoing focus on her sobriety and mental health, a private battle that, unlike almost anything else in her career, she never fully got to keep behind closed doors. No storyline in Melrose Place history is more famous than hers, and few twists in the history of American soap opera have been referenced, parodied, and remembered as often. Dr. Kimberly Shaw's wig, her hidden scars, and the bomb that blew up an entire wedding became one of the most legendary twists in 1990s television. And the woman who made it unforgettable was Marcia Cross, who was 30 years old when she joined the cast. Marcia Ann Cross was born on March 25, 1962, in Marlborough, Massachusetts, and trained at the Juilliard School before working her way through a string of daytime soaps, including The Edge of Night, Another World, and One Life to Live. She joined Melrose Place in 1992 as Dr. Kimberly Shaw, and the character's escalating, gloriously unhinged storylines made her one of the show's most talked about figures. Off-screen, Cross spent years in a relationship with actor Richard Jordan, 25 years her senior, who died of a brain tumor in 1993 in the middle of the show's early run. She later returned to school and earned a master's degree in psychology from Antioch University. Between Melrose and her next great role, Cross also starred in the acclaimed drama Everwood, alongside Treat Williams, and years later took on the role of a fictional American president in the ABC thriller Quantico. But it was her defining turn as the impeccably controlled Brie Van de Kamp on Desperate Housewives, from 2004 to 2012, that transformed her into a genuine television icon, earning 3 Golden Globe nominations, a Primetime Emmy nomination, and a Screen Actors Guild Award as part of the ensemble. She married stockbroker Tom Mahoney in 2006, and the couple welcomed twin daughters the following year after undergoing in vitro fertilization. Then, in November 2017, during a routine checkup, Cross was diagnosed with anal cancer. She chose to fight the disease openly and publicly, becoming a vocal advocate for cancer awareness and HPV education, determined to strip away the stigma that so often surrounds the diagnosis. Today, in 2026, Marcia Cross is 64 years old, cancer-free and thriving, having turned one of the most frightening chapters of her life into a genuine public service. She was only ever supposed to appear in 2 episodes. Instead, Sydney Andrews became one of the most beloved characters in the entire history of Melrose Place, and the actress who played her, Laura Leighton, was just 24 years old when a minor guest role turned into the role of a lifetime. Laura Diane Miller was born on July 24, 1968, in Iowa City, Iowa, and adopted her grandfather's surname, Leighton, as her stage name in 1988. After high school, she toured with the singing and dancing troupe The Young Americans before moving to Los Angeles, where she worked odd jobs and appeared in commercials for Pizza Hut and Depp Hair Gel. She was also, during this period, employed as a bartender at the Mezzaluna restaurant in Brentwood, a detail that would later become an eerie footnote in Los Angeles history after the restaurant's connection to the O.J. Simpson case. In 1993, a casting office job tip led her to audition for a small role on Melrose Place, and the character of troubled younger sister Sydney Andrews grew, thanks to Leighton's fiery presence, into a full-time part. On set, Leighton met co-star Doug Savant, and the two married in May 1998, going on to have 2 children together, while Leighton also helped raise Savant's 2 daughters from his previous marriage as one blended family. She left the show in 1997, but stayed close to the Melrose universe with a guest arc on Beverly Hills 90210, then returned to reprise Sydney in the 2009 reboot after the show's producers cleverly revealed her supposed death years earlier had been faked. In between, she guest starred on shows including CSI Miami, Boston Legal, and Law & Order Special Victims Unit, before landing her second signature role as Ashley Marin, the protective mother at the center of Pretty Little Liars, from 2010 to 2017. Today, in 2026, Laura Leighton is 57 years old, still happily married to her Melrose Place co-star nearly 3 decades later. one of the very few genuine Hollywood love stories this show ever produced off-screen. There it is, the entire hidden world behind the doors of Melrose Place. Marriages that lasted for decades, and marriages that shattered on impact within months. A woman who lost nearly a decade of her life to a single terrible night behind the wheel, and another who turned her darkest medical diagnosis into her proudest public fight. A soccer star who traded stardom for spreadsheets and non-profit boardrooms, and a hard-nosed executive whose real private struggles turned out to be far messier than anything her character ever survived on screen. A show built on fictional scandal that somehow could never quite outpace the real thing happening just off camera. Some of them never left the industry at all, quietly building second and third acts that, in some cases, eclipsed the fame Melrose Place first gave them. Others walked away entirely, trading sound stages for courtrooms, boardrooms, hospital waiting rooms, or simply a quieter life far from Los Angeles. A few found the kind of lasting love that this particular show, built almost entirely on infidelity and betrayal, seemed designed to make impossible. But all of them are part of one story. A story about how 7 seasons in front of a camera on Fox can become more than 30 years of memory, obsession, and reinvention. About the gap between the glossy apartment complex on screen and the very real, very complicated lives the people living in it actually led once the cameras stopped rolling. 12 actors, 12 wildly different lives after the cameras stopped rolling on that fictional Los Angeles courtyard. Some found peace, some found tragedy. A few, remarkably, found both. Tell us in the comments, who was your favorite character from Melrose Place, and which of these real-life stories surprised you the most? If you want to keep uncovering the truth behind the classic shows that raised an entire generation, subscribe to this channel and ring the bell. Every week, we go past the legend and into the life.